Let's take a look at Heat and what it can do inside of Daz Studio. Heat is a subscription service that lets you apply an animation directly to your Genesis 8 or Genesis 9 character in the viewport inside of Daz Studio. It works with a standalone client from which you pick an animation. You can search for it, you can upload your own animation, you can buy animations from a marketplace coming soon, and then you click literally one button and it applies retargeted for your character inside of Daz Studio in the viewport and ready to rock. I'll show you the whole pipeline process, also how to make adjustments and how to send all of that over to Unreal Engine for rendering if you wanted to do that. It's quite magical, I gotta tell you. So this here was Victoria 9, and this was made in a couple of minutes, which is why I didn't adjust the feet. That would have easily been possible. This guy took a little bit longer. That's the 3D Universe Toon Male with deforce. So I've deforced his clothing and made some adjustments there, but I mean, this really didn't take all that long. Applied a couple of expressions and, you know, off you go to render this. This was done in Iray, but I'll show you how to bring this over into Unreal Engine later. Let's get started. To set Heat up, head over to heat.tech in your favorite web browser, and you must register here or sign in to download all the good stuff. They tell you on the website how this works, and we're going to have other videos also that will show you how to apply these animations directly in Blender as well as directly inside of Unreal Engine. So it's very, very powerful stuff. Blender is going to blow you away, but let's get started with Daz Studio. I'm going to go and sign in, and then you get to this page here once you're logged in, and you get to download the plugin. That's the first thing that you need to do. And once you do that, you get something like this here, the heatbridge.zip, and that includes everything that you need to get started with Heat in basically any application. So in this folder that you unzip, like you go right click here and then say extract all. That's what I've already done. Inside Heatbridge you have the Heat installer. This is needed for Daz Studio, so double click that and it'll install a standalone little application here. And then for the Daz Studio part, you also need to go into the plugins folder, and you got something for Unity, for Daz Studio, and for Blender here. So in this case here, let's go with this, and there's two files in here, well, one file and one folder. Copy both of these things out here, copy, and then copy that, or rather paste that into your Daz Studio's plugin directory. So that is by default on your C drive in program files, and that is then in Daz 3D. I happen to have 3 versions of Daz Studio installed here, but yours was probably going to be this one. You might also have access to the public build here. Either of these is fine, whatever you're using. Inside of here you'll find a plugins folder, so paste those bits and pieces in here. I've already got them, Heat content, and then there's also down here is somewhere is heat.dll, and once it's in there you can go and start Daz Studio, and that's where all the magic happens. So once both of these things are installed, if Daz Studio is running, by the way, go close it down and restart it, and also the installer. So let's go and open that up so I can show you the bits and pieces here. I'm going to search for Heat here. There's Heatbridge, and that's the standalone app that we need to go and open. Here we go. We sadly need to sign in again, but that's just one of those things. We just have to do that because this is not the website. This is now the app. And once you're signed in, you can head over here to the marketplace. Or you can just go and start searching for movements here. So this is where subscribers can now see literally everything. And people who are not subscribed, who are basically on the free tier, you get to see a subset of the animations that are denoted as free here. When you hover, you get a bit of a preview. It's a bit like Mixer Mode, just like 4,000 times better, basically. And also there's more variety, and there's so much more stuff coming from what I understand. So very exciting. Let's stick with the one that I had here, and let's go search for Wave and see what comes up here. So there we go. We've got 3 here. Pit Crew Wave. That's a waving in a car. There's the Wave. This is the one that I've used. And there's also Wave Over. So let's use Wave Over because everyone has access to it. So I'm going to go and click on it. And then this window opens up here in which I can do some other stuff. You can, if the guy moves positions, you can go and follow him. That's with this icon here. Or you can go and rotate around and have a look at the little heat guy here from all sides. I might just make this a little bit smaller here. At the bottom left, you get to pick what your target application is. So in our case, that's going to be Daz. So let's switch that on. And technically, all I can do now is click import, and that'll transfer this animation retargeted to whichever character I've got selected, either Genesis 8 or Genesis 9 character. So very cool. Let's keep this in mind, not click the button yet, and move this over to my other screen and just quickly get Daz Studio ready, because that's another step that you have to do. So once the plugin is installed, and if it is or if it isn't, you can always have a look at under Help, About Installed Plugins, and then you should see the Heat plugin installed here. Make sure that's enabled. And then you need to open a pane that lets you connect to this little standalone application that we've just opened there. I like to do this with a right click here, add pane to group, and there's going to be the Heat pane. And if you don't find it here, which I can't, or maybe I've got stream blindness, it does happen sometimes. Let's head over to Window, Panes, and there's Heat Animations. I didn't see that in the right click menu. Okay, no worries. So that's it. You can dock this anywhere. You don't need to keep it open. You only need to use this once to literally connect to the Heat bridge. And as soon as you click that, Heat bridge is now connected. You can forget about it, close it, or just put it in the background. Next thing, we need to find a Genesis 9 character. Now, just as a workflow tip, I recommend not using fully fledged characters with clothing and hair. I recommend you use something like the def load or just the regular gray figure here, because that puts the least amount of strain on your system. So therefore you're going to have a better preview experience in your viewport as you work with animations. You can always turn these into clothed, fully fledged characters later. I'll show you how to do that. But for now, let's just use the gray guy as we preview what our animation needs to look like. There we go. So pick Genesis 8 or 9, the def load. Let's open up our timeline here, because that's going to be very important in a moment. Make sure Genesis is selected. And I'll bring this over here again. You can leave it on your second monitor, of course, and just make a note of how many frames this is. So 612 is quite a lot. I should have picked a shorter animation really, but we're going to pick a few. So let's click import, and it's now sending it to Daz Studio. In Daz Studio, you might get a little pop-up box that says animations are being transferred, and there we go, boom. We currently only see the first 60 frames here, so I suppose the duration of the animation doesn't quite adjust, but that's okay. You can do this manually. They've all come across. Just make a note of what the last frame is here, 612. And go and type that in here at the bottom left. So 600, I'm going to type 13 because there's always frame 0, and then there's like, so it's total duration is 613 if your actual animation was 612. So there we go. You can see all these keyframes, hit play, and there we go. That is the animation that we've just seen. And isn't that magical? One click and it just all comes across. This is really, really cool. I absolutely love it. You can now go, if you want to just collect a few and try them out, at this point you can go and save this as a pose preset, either with a little plus icon here, or you can go File, Save As, and then you select the pose preset. Oops, obviously with Genesis 9 selected. Sorry about that, Daz Studio. You're so right. Pose preset, and then you need to pick animated range, start and stop here, or you can save a subset if you like, but you know, this is the magic of it. You can also use it as basically an unlimited pose generator, so you can go and find whatever pose you're looking for, maybe something like this, and then you can go and make adjustments and just save it out as a single pose if you like to do that. So that is quite nice. If you need another animation, if you want to try that out, there is an option to get rid of all the keyframes here with this little context menu. If you click on that, there's clear animation, clear figure. It takes a second, and then all the keyframes here will be deleted. Let's head back over to the Heat launcher here and pick the other wave that I've used for the animation that I've shown you in the beginning. This one is just called The Wave, and this is only available to premium subscribers, which is, by the way, the prices, if you've known Heat when they launched on the Daz marketplace, they've drastically reduced from $25 a month to $5 a month for the mover plan. Highly recommend that. I've been a subscriber actually from the beginning, full disclosure. And I thought 25 was actually a pretty good price already, but 5, I mean, that's really nothing to think about. You should do this considering how expensive animation packs are on the Daz store. So once again, click this, and then I'm just going to go and move this over. So maybe I can show you this little pop-up window that sometimes appears. I'll click import, and does it? Does it? No, it only happens sometimes. I don't know why. This one has a few less frames, so an easy way to get to the end of the animation is to go somewhere beyond that and then just click this button here that says skip to previous key, and then you get to this frame, and you know the current one is 244, so let's change the total duration to 245, and then you've got the whole timeline on this animation. And I'm picking this because I wanted to show you how to make a change. So you'll frequently, with any mocap data, you'll run into problems because not every figure or not every character shape will work with your character. So in this case, I see that my character here intersects as he bends down with the knees, and that's probably something that we should correct, and we can do that by using Animate. Now, Animate is something that is available for free for 30 days in new versions of Daz Studio, but sometimes you can pick it up for cheap, and that's the full version of Animate that we need for that. So it's cumbersome to go in and change every keyframe to make this override. There is a product by Dart & Beck that makes that easy for shoulders and legs, but if you don't have that, Animate is your friend. Let me show how to do that. So first of all, let's go to Animate and turn our keyframe animation into an Ani block so that we can then make a layer to override the hand movement at that particular point. So in order to do that, Animate, open, right click and say create Ani block from Studio Keyframes. I tend to pick this one here and hit done. That will create that Ani block. And on the timeline, the moment I hit play, we see all the keyframes have gone, but my guy is still moving, which is perfect. That's exactly what we need. Oh, also one other thing. If your computers are struggling to preview this, make sure you select the Genesis figure under mesh resolution and switch him over to base resolution. That means Daz Studio has less polygons to calculate and might make your preview a little bit faster. So if you're not that familiar with Animate, that's totally fine. We're going to go and set keyframes and only make changes when his hands intersect with the body. To make a change to the animation, we don't want to edit the existing keyframes here. We want to go and add a layer that makes changes on top of what we already have so that they're isolated. To do that, we can add another subtract down here. And in that subtract, let's double click it and call this one shoulders, I'd say, and hit done. And in here, we want to go and have an empty Ani block that's as long as the wave. So ours is just over 4 seconds. That's not going to be good for us. We're gonna have to decide, make it 4 or 5 seconds. So let's go and make an empty block that is, in fact, no properties and make it 5 seconds. It has to be longer than the current one. Move that over here. And then we can go and rename it and call it shoulders adjust, just so that we know what that is. And in here, we can go and click once and then double click again for the keyframes. So right now we have nothing in there, and that's fine. To make a change to this, let's go and forward to the position at which the hands look worse. And then we're going to set keyframes on the shoulders and then set 0 keyframes where they need to be back in its original position. So like here, that's pretty bad, I guess. So let's go and switch over to my power pose tool and then go and select a shoulder joint here and then just go and move this guy up and out. And as I do that, you can see that tiny little green thing that's happening here. Ignore the red thing. I don't know what that is. The green thing means there's now a keyframe been set because I've moved the shoulder. And the same goes for the other shoulder. I'm going to go and move that one out as well. You can also use the trackball, or you can use the parameters here if you're familiar with that. And this has now made a global change to this animation through that correction layer here. So now I can go and have a look. Nope, it looks like over here it's even worse. So they also need to go not on the left hand side but on the right hand side. We also need to bring that hand out like so here, or up like this. That's also fine. So that looks good at this position. But of course, it being a global change, it means that if I go back to the beginning, this is now also screwed up my hand positions for the beginning. So I'm gonna have to recorrect that. So in order to do that, I'm gonna have a look at where my change actually needs to kick in. And then I'm gonna set a 0 keyframe. So until about here, everything is fine. So once again, with my shoulder selected, I'm gonna go and set a 0 keyframe. This means that my changes are being reversed here to its original position, and then I'll go, now my correction is happening, And the moment he's starting to raise his hands to about here, I'm pretty sure that I can go and set another 0 key, because at that point my changes are no longer necessary. So let's do that, 0 key. There we go, perfect. And now the animation should look okay on my character. That's really not that hard. It's just one of those things you gotta know that this is how Daz Studio ticks in the background. Let's have a look. That doesn't look bad. And if you needed to make other changes, then, you know, go ahead and do that. If you had more rotund characters that are walking around and their hands are sticking in their hips or something, then this is the way to do it. So set the correction on the joints that you need with a layered track, set 0 keyframes where the correction is not needed, and that's your global change. Now let's go out of here and just click the right, the gray bit here, and turn all this back into keyframes so that they're back on the Daz Studio timeline. We do that by right-clicking, probably with the character selected here. Not strictly necessary, but it's just something I'd like to do. Right-click and say Bake to Studio Keyframes. It says the Daz Studio timeline is going to take over in a moment, and your Ani blocks are not going to be used. And any moment now, we have a timeline full of keyframes with the animation that we can now play back, and it now no longer intersects with my man's legs. Hey, perfect. So that's my character with animation, with a change to the animation if and when necessary. Let's turn him into a fully fledged character and see if we can send him over to Unreal Engine. To turn my guy into any character, I'm going to go and just pick my friend the Neanderthal here. I thought that might be a good demo model. So if I go and have the Genesis 9 figure selected, I can just go and select my custom character or fiddle with dials if I wanted to and apply its skin preset. But in this case, if I just load a custom one, it says apply this character to the currently selected figure, and make sure animation wise you're on the first frame of your animation, so frame 0, so to say. Hit accept, and then that will turn this guy, the gray guy, into an actual figure with proper proportions and skin detail. There we go, nice and short and stocky. I like it. Perhaps we're also going to give him something to wear, something fancy. Perhaps not a cocktail dress, but perhaps just some basic boxer shorts here. There we go. That should do the trick. So now that this guy is looking okay, let's go and bring him into Unreal Engine. So I think I'm going to go and switch the range here from 0 to 244 over to 1 to 244. Notice what happens to the manipulator here. That is now in the correct position for the remainder of my animation, which is what we want. I have an Unreal Engine project ready to receive him open here. Let's go and send him over with file sent to Daz to Unreal. This is with Unreal Engine 5.4, by the way, from David's GitHub repository. I'm going to call him here Neanderthal 9. It's a skeletal mesh. We don't need to fix the twist bones here, and we're not going to import him facing right, but I'm going to give him a unique skeleton. No morphs required. Let's hit accept. Moments later, he should arrive in Unreal Engine. Here he is, Neanderthal 9. Let's drag him in. He looks a little bit shiny, but I've shown you how to do material fixes in a previous video. Let's turn him around, put the real-time calculation on as well. Now let's see what we can do in order to bring that animation over. So that once again happens over here with the Neanderthal selected, send to Daz to Unreal. And from the top here, we're going to pick animation and we'll say the wave. And we're going to use new export, and that is pretty much it. Just make sure that import facing right is ticked the same way as it was when you sent over the skeletal mesh. Just mine was unticked, so it's going to be fine this way. Hit accept. That should be fairly fast. And it's now ready to be applied here to my guy in Unreal Engine. So you can either use this via sequencer, or you can just go and switch this over from animation blueprint to animation asset and then pick an asset to play. Let's go and call it here the wave, and here he is. Might have to adjust his position a little bit like so. And if you were to play this now, he would go and say woohoo, there we go, fantastic. So that has come across and is ready to play, or you can use it in sequencer, also not a problem at all. Let's do that quickly. Let's make a new level sequence, just in case you're not familiar with level sequences and how to do these things in Unreal Engine. don't worry about it. I have other videos about that. So with him, let's go and track him in the sequencer. And then go under animation, pick the one we want to play, which is the wave. And then there it is. Here he goes. Woohoo! The wave, buddy. If you want to make it faster or slower, that is also possible by the magic of the properties of play rate. We can make that twice as fast, or faster or slower, anything that we want to do. And that's how easy it is to apply animations to our DAZ characters from now on, thanks to Heat. So check it out. There's a free tier available. It doesn't cost you anything to try it out. There's a $5 tier that gets you access to currently all other premium animations. This thing can do amazing stuff inside of Blender, where we can retarget animations to basically arbitrary humanoid characters. If you find the retargeter inside Unreal Engine is too much work, Heat has you covered. I'm going to make 2 other videos about this. The next one is about Blender, so stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed it. Heat.tech is the website, and I highly recommend you check it out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.